afternoon and welcome to another edition of WIN TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, and I want to thank you so very much for joining us today. I also want to give a shout out to James Wright and Jamila Bay, who pitched in for me last week. I did get a chance to watch the show. I just couldn't tune in or jump in, but I think they did a great job. So I want to thank the team because, we do have a great team here at the Washington Informer, and your support does a lot to make sure that we kind of keep the ball rolling. We hope you've had a chance to pick up a copy of this week's Washington Informer. You can also read the digital edition online at www.washingtoninformer.com. If you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and hit share so your followers can see the broadcast. And if you're watching on Twitter, be sure to follow us so we can follow you back. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. Now, don't think I forgot, because you all know every week I like to show the print edition. And even though I didn't do it earlier, I'm doing it now because I just celebrate the fact that we are continuing to print a paper every week. And some folks say to me, Denise, I don't know how you all do it, but we do. Thanks to you. You all help to make that happen. And so, we got another edition out on the streets. And so if you want to pick it up, if you've been following me either, I don't know if I'm doing it on Facebook or Instagram. And I guess it's not Instagram because I don't really know how to use that. But Facebook, I always say there's nothing like a Sunday morning when times are just a little bit slower. You can go get that cup of coffee or a cup of tea, sit back, relax, and read the Washington Informer. So even if you pick it up today and you can't read it, save it till Sunday, go ahead and sit back and enjoy and give us your feedback. We want to know what you think about the Washington Informer and the stories that you're reading there. If there's more information that you would like for us to follow up on stories that we have covered, or if there's some things going on in your community that you would love for us to cover, send us an email at news, N-E-W-S, at washingtoninformer.com. Send it to news@washingtoninformer.com. You can also add comments on the stories. If you're reading it online, you can send us, what are they, DMs? I'm trying to learn this. But you can send us messages through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Did you all know Twitter was down this week? I don't know what's happening with Twitter, but we're going to follow up on that because with Elon Musk and others and what's going on with this Twitter thing, it's interesting, particularly those who really rely on Twitter for their news and information. See, you rely on Twitter, but I'm saying you should rely on the Washington Informer. So send us your information and or your questions, your comments. We want to hear from you. We love your feedback. And I got another doozy. Sherry doesn't know I was going to say this, but when we first started this show, people were commenting on the pencil sharpener. The pencil sharpener behind me. And I love having the pencil sharpener as a part of our set because it certainly does this is a set, but remind me of back in the day when, pencils, particularly those red pencils, were a necessary tool for those of us in journalism as we edited those stories, that red pencil. And you all remember the red pencil from school, right? When the teacher put those red marks on your papers, and they were able to do it because of that little thing back there called the pencil sharpener. Now, we used to have the crank sharpener, and I don't know, back in the day, maybe they even used knives or razor blades. I don't know. But that certainly does keep us grounded and help us to remember from whence we came. So I think we might try to find, and if you all find this before we do, the anniversary of this was new technology here. Remember, this was new. Of course, after that came the electric pencil sharpener. You just stuck it in there and it rotated and sharpened your pencil. But one of those we want to find the anniversary of, and we're going to start celebrating the anniversary of the pencil sharpener. I think that would be a fun thing to do. So if you find out when the pencil sharpener was first created and who created it, who knows? It could have been a person that looks like me, or maybe you. Let's do a little research on that. But anyway, we're going to move on. I want to also, I know it's crazy, but you never know. We have to celebrate the little things and the big things. And we're going to celebrate actually something really big that happened in DC with one of our guests today, and something else is happening this weekend with another guest today. So there's a lot of celebrating going on. But before we get started, let's watch this week's news broadcast by Curtis Knowles, and I'll be back with you in just a minute.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters. President Biden on Monday touted his administration's, quote, historic progress on actions to reduce gun violence. Biden celebrated the passage of the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which he called the most significant legislation on reducing gun violence to pass Congress in 30 years. The bill enhances background checks for gun buyers under 21, provides billions of dollars for mental health services, and gives $750 million to states to incentivize crisis intervention programs. He also ensures that individuals convicted of domestic violence can't buy a gun for at least 5 years. Biden talked about the bill saying, quote, "Make no mistake about it, this legislation is real progress, but more has to be done." The Las Vegas Raiders have hired attorney Sandra Douglas Morgan as the team's newest president, and for the first time in NFL history, a black woman has assumed that role for one of the league's franchises. Morgan joins Washington Commanders president Jason Wright as the only two blacks leading NFL franchises. Morgan commented saying, quote, "It is the honor of a lifetime to join the Raiders at one of the most defining times in the team's history." Raiders owner Mark Davis also commented saying, quote, "Her experience, integrity, and passion for this community will be invaluable to our organization." Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his entire cabinet are set to resign this week, with outrage over the country's economic crisis boiling over as protesters seize the capital. On Saturday, tens of thousands of protesters seized Sri Lanka's capital buildings, including the official residence of Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, in the largest day of protests that have been escalating for months. The Prime Minister's office, in a statement on Monday, confirmed Rajapaksa's decision to step down this week, although he has not made any direct public statements himself. Soaring inflation and government debt have left a nation of over 22 million with dire shortages of food, medicine, and fuel, and citizens have been taking to the streets to demand accountability. After decades of waiting, it's time for the world to finally see the first images taken by the world's most powerful space telescope, the James Webb Space Telescope. Development of the world's premier space observatory began in 2004, and after years of delays, the telescope and its massive gold mirror have finally launched on December 25th. President Biden released one of the Webb's first images on Monday, and NASA said, quote, "It is the deepest and sharpest infrared image of the distant universe to date." The rest of the high-resolution color images made their debut on Tuesday. The Space Observatory can investigate the mysteries of the universe by observing them through infrared light, which is invisible to the human eye.
Thank you, Curtis. Wow, we have been around the world on this news broadcast, but we appreciate Curtis Knowles for bringing all those issues to us. And we're going to move on with the show, though. Joining us today are Assistant Metropolitan Police Department Chief Morgan Kane. Boy, I got a lot in there. But Assistant MPD Chief Morgan Kane is going to be with us. We're also planning to talk to Ron Moten, a community advocate and co-founder of Don't Mute DC. And as you all may have seen a few days ago, the Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune statue was unveiled at the U.S. Capitol. So with us today, we are so honored to have the granddaughter of the educator and civil rights activist, Dr. Evelyn Bethune, and the Foundation for the Advancement of Music and Education founder and CEO Tony Lewis will be with us as we celebrate a great event that they're going to be doing tomorrow. And she'll be bringing with her some volunteers and members of her board to talk about the organization, their camp, and the opportunities that are available to promote music and education among young people in the DMV. And before we bring our guest on, we've already had our live broadcast, so I won't ask Curtis to do that again. So we're going to jump on down and see if is Assistant Chief Morgan with us? Wonderful. Okay, we're going to look at just get a tease about Chief Morgan Kane, and we'll be with her in just a second.
We're pledging to increase the number of female police officers and continue to make MPD the most equitable agency for women in the law enforcement field. Currently, women make up only 12% of sworn officers and 3% of police leadership in the United States, and that number is far, far too low. I am proud to say that at MPD, we have over 23% of our sworn officers who are women, and thus far exceed the national average.
I am Morgan Kane, and I am an Assistant Chief of Police with the Metropolitan Police Department. The significance of those words, I am an Assistant Chief of Police, is not lost on me, and I remain humbled and honored by our Chief's confidence in appointing me to this position. I am proud to serve our city as a member of our talented MPD executive staff.
Wow, that is a great introduction, but it's even greater to have you here with us. Assistant Chief Kane, how are you?
I am great. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, my pleasure. So you got a Chief Conti is kind of in the front, but you got a lot of responsibility as assistant chief. So why don't we start a little bit there, and if you can weave into that, I mean, what you do as an assistant chief, but weave into that a little bit about your background. If you're from DC, and we always like those DC stories. So tell us about yourself.
So I will say I'm not originally from Washington, D.C., but I absolutely live in Washington, D.C., where I'm raising my 7-year-old son now. He attends D.C. public schools. So a little bit about me. I came down to the DC area in 1993 after I graduated high school to go to college. I went to Marymount University over in Arlington, Virginia, from upstate New York. When I came down, of course, I'm studying, I'm getting my undergraduate degree. And at some point during my sophomore year of college, I became aware, I became introduced into law enforcement, because where I'm from upstate New York, that wasn't something we didn't necessarily talk to the police. So I was exposed to policing, and while I was continuing my undergraduate education, in my mind, I'm like, I really want to get into law enforcement. I really want to get into law enforcement, in spite of the fact that I thought I would go straight to law school from undergrad. And so I started looking, my senior year to kind of see what was out there. I looked at some federal agencies, I looked at local agencies in the DMV, and then I looked at the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C., and just fell in love. This is what I wanted to do after looking at different agencies and deciding what it is that I needed to grow myself in law enforcement, which was to come to a local agency, get that experience, get promoted in that respect. But once I got here, I was like, I can't leave. I love this agency. I love this city. And so I got a graduate degree, a master's in public administration. Continued on with my education a little bit more after that as well. Set up in Washington, D.C., probably about six years ago, I think, with my son. And again, I love the city, I love the department, and I love being able to be put in a position where I'm responsible for public safety, not only in my neighborhood, but in our nation's capital. Right now, as the chief of Patrol Services North, I oversee the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th police districts.
Wow. So, you said a lot there that I wanted to kind of follow back on. But number one, you were highlighted as a female officer or assistant chief now with MPD. And there have been a lot of challenges against the Metropolitan Police Department internally as it relates to women in the department. Can you speak to that and what measures you all may be taking to make sure that women feel more, welcomed into the department?
Absolutely. So one of the, and I talked about the police department, but one of the reasons that I came to the Metropolitan Police Department was when I started looking into it, the representation of women in this police department. And at that point, when I came on in 1998, the representation of women that were in management positions has existed within this agency for quite some time. And so seeing women that look like me, in management positions and being able to make decisions is a reason why I am actually here. And those women, they served as mentors. They taught me so much about law enforcement and managing and just being a police officer. My first training officer, my master patrol officer, was a woman, a Black woman who I always say it, MPO Goldie Easterland. She showed me everything that I needed to know to be a successful patrol officer. So in that context, my experience, and I can speak to you from my experience, what I've had in the police department. Men and women have actually helped me in my career. But nevertheless, everyone has their own experience. And so, what I can say in 2022, what is happening is I can feel and I can see, and I try to play my role in that, where this agency is continuing to evolve, which we've done, since we've been in existence. But in the effort, to kind of change the culture and make sure that no one has that experience where they walk away feeling as if they weren't included, or as if they didn't have the same opportunities. Chief Conti has been dogged in that approach. We just announced the fact that we hired Pamela Smith. She was the chief of the United States Park Police, and so in creating a position that reports directly to the chief, where we're looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that goes into every aspect of this agency. Her hands can reach so far down in this agency, and when you look at just her stance, she has a true background in EEO as well. And what she's bringing to the table, and just how thoughtful she is, and how much she gets it. And her hands are everywhere right now as she's hearing back from not just the executive, but from the officers, going into units, looking at processes, making sure that everything is equitable, right? That we're in order, that we're changing the feel of, when you just walk into the door of MPD. That is what she and her team that she's building right now, with the support of the entire executive staff here with MPD. It's just exciting. So when you talk about that aspect of it, it's changing processes as we speak.
Chief Kane, if I could jump in really quickly, because when you talked about walking into the door, and I know that when we talk about policing in the District of Columbia, I mean, we're talking about all people, right? Mm-hmm. But we are finding, and maybe you can address this a little bit too, is how policing is changing, if at all, because of the increasing numbers, particularly of young females that are walking into the door, not necessarily for jobs, right? Mm-hmm. But because of, alleged criminal activity or what have you. So one, what does that look like? And two, has the job of policing changed now when, the alleged perpetrator, or I don't want to call them criminal because they're not yet, is a female as opposed to a male perpetrator? How do you handle these girls? And I only say that because, I see even our block, a lot of times I see young ladies walking down the street, with their babies and ankle bracelets on. And I'm wondering, how do they manage their day-to-day? What does MPD do, if anything, when you have these girls coming in, increased numbers of females coming in, the door?
So I think what's important in that space, before I get to our young ladies and kind of what they're experiencing in their introduction into the criminal justice system, I think that's why when we talk about hiring more women in law enforcement, right, there's just something different that we bring to the table. We're out of box thinkers, we're problem solvers, right? So it's not so, you break the law, you go to jail, right? We're coming into circumstances. And again, this is why it's so important for women, because we are going to be what actually changes the face of law enforcement, right? And how law enforcement is carried out. You think about what these last couple of years have been like with the health pandemic, with, the social and the civil unrest that we've experienced, in 2020, rolling over into an insurrection, in 2021. So we have to, and the community is demanding that we change what law enforcement looks like, and rightfully so, right? And so I say that it's going to be so important for women because we're just good at it. We're good at connecting those dots. We're good at management. We're good at all of those things. And so when you talk about how the criminal justice system affects our young women, And that is something that we the police department, especially in Washington D.C., we take our community outreach, the support. Not only are we law enforcement officers, protecting and serving, but the serving part of what it is that we do when we talk about our community outreach and how can we engage and how can we catch these young women before they enter the criminal justice system. Because when you think about it, particularly coming out of the health pandemic, there are folks that have a lot of mental health issues.
Mhm.
There are people that can not provide for basic needs, right? We're talking about diapers. There is a formula shortage in this country right now. So a lot of our outreaches, how can we not only support, their growth, but we are very intentional in the space of our cadet program, to prepare them, for lifelong careers, right? The mayor wanted to allow kids that had connections to Washington, D.C. Historically, our cadet program, you had to graduate from a D.C. a D.C. high school. Now, if you have significant ties to the district, and you can have graduated from a school in Maryland, you have significant ties to the district, you can actually enter into our cadet program where we will pay for you, to go to college, get your college credits. And we pay you a salary, while you're in the cadet program, and then you're able to, if fit and you pass the background and all that good stuff, you can roll over into our police academy, and it sets you up for success
Yes.
by virtue of giving you a job with benefits, right? Because
Mhm.
think about health insurance, dental insurance, vision insurance, all of those things that come with having a steady job and a steady salary and a steady paycheck. We're setting you up in that space. So that's my plug for our cadet program. And
Okay.
I'm always giving, that plug out when I'm out in the community, because and we're catching them when they're in high school,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Trying to get them, on a good foot and on a good track. And we provide a lot of support in that respect. But you talk about the outreach that we do, whether that's backpack giveaway, grocery giveaways, just sitting down and having those conversations, creating those spaces and places for our young women to have women. There are so many amazing police officers in the Metropolitan Police Department of all ranks who are women
That's
that they will take the time to mentor and guide. You talk about the officers that's in our school safety division,
right.
right? They're
Right.
mentoring, they're interceding some bad behavior and getting kids on, the good foot and on the right track, connecting them to resources. And that's something our patrol officers do as well. How
But
can we connect them to resources that are needed?
it sounds like it even addresses the question that I was going to ask, and we're kind of running out of time. But the question I was going to ask that you said earlier when you were talking about, how you got into this profession, and that where you came from, we didn't really talk to police, right? And so that's pretty much still the same case here, even though young people don't talk to anybody that's 2 years older than them. I don't know.
we got a little bit more we can talk about. We can talk about kind of on that side.
I try, and sometimes it's hard to engage, but anyway, yeah. I mean, it seems like a lot of these programs are sort of trying to break down that
Yes.
that barrier between and open up communications, and is that working?
Absolutely. And that is the point of our outreach, right? And every patrol officer is an outreach officer, is a community policing officer. And so we should be having conversations. We should be out of our cars talking to community members, right? And now, by and far, our community in Washington, D.C., we have such a great relationship with, right? And when you talk about our young kids, right? How do they communicate? They're on the phone, they're on social media, they're texting, and we have places and spaces where we try to make sure we're developing communication skills as well. But we're not going anywhere. So yes, even are there some times where they're like, I don't want to talk to you. Well, I'm gonna talk to you anyway. How are you doing today? I might stand out on the corner with you, or we can walk up the street together, but we cannot give up in that place. Sometimes we're not welcome. A lot of places and spaces we are very welcomed and we're embraced when we come. But you're right. And so when we talk about those programs, the Citizens Youth Advisory Council, I know my counterpart who runs the Youth and Family Engagement Bureau, her and her team, they have so many programs, and so many efforts where we are going in and trying to break down, what, the last couple of years have kind of dictated in the media on how we should be received in communities. And we have some children that have bought into that. But that's why I think it's so important that we leave our officers in the schools as well, because we're breaking that down.
Yeah,
we're breaking
that's another issue.
down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to talk to Ron Moten, I believe, in a few minutes. But one of the things that, I think his program that he did years ago, and what we're seeing sort of a reinvention of with these community or with the violence interrupters.
Yes.
Before we end, I just wanted to see if you could just talk a little bit about how you all work with them at all, or how they support what you do, or vice versa.
So let me say that understanding and respecting, right, where the violence interrupters have to operate, right? They're in the community, so we give them, that lane that they have to be in, and we communicate. It's funny because I'm going to go, when I leave here, I'm going over to kind of talk to some of them right from this meeting that I'm getting ready to be late to after this. But we understand that they have to operate in their own lane because they have to build those relationships, but we depend on them to know what's going on and where they need to focus their efforts to actually quell the violence and stop the crime, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a delicate, dance that we do. Allowing them the space, without necessarily reporting back to us, but we're dependent upon them doing, playing their part and reaching out to those people that have the guns, that are out robbing, and work within, give it everything that they have to make sure that we're getting those folks on the right path, and that we're quelling that violence. So in that respect, we have to communicate, particularly when we see violent activity in our communities.
Well, Assistant Chief Kane, I'm so glad you were able to spend a few minutes with us. I told Chevry we could do a whole hour on this.
Oh, we could.
A couple hours.
We could.
And I'm so glad that you've opened up your time, and we're sorry for making you late. But we're glad that you were able to join us. And, we want to know more about what you all are doing. I mean, I think the one thing that we try to stress here at the Washington Informer is that, when we talk about violence, we're only talking about maybe 5% of the population that are causing us all this angst. And but 95% of the population, and even as it relates to the police department, are doing positive things.
Absolutely.
And so how do we get those stories out? So we appreciate you being here and sharing a few of those stories, particularly as it relates to women in the department.
And let me take a moment before I go. The one thing I want to say, and I think one of the questions we were going to talk about gun and gun violence. What I would ask in this, what I would ask of your listening audience and the community, right? If you see something, we need you to say something, right? I think that it's difficult when there are family members and there are friends that know that their loved ones have illegal weapons and that they will use them. We need you to share that. If you can do it anonymously, we have a gun a reward program. Text us 5044, 411. Call us at 202-727-9099. We need to continue to get the illegal guns off the street. That is what is driving the violence and these petty arguments that folks are getting into. So my ask is, if you
and slow those numbers down for us.
I was trying to get out. So you can text us at 50411 or call us at 202-727-9099.
Okay.
Yes, help us continue to get these illegal guns off the street so we keep our community safe.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, we hope to have you back soon. I got a bunch more questions to ask, but we'll get it in when we can.
Okay, absolutely. Just let me know.
Okay, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
All righty. So I'm hoping that Ron Moten is here, because I want to segue right into this conversation with him, because, Ron, first of all, thank you for being with us.
No problem.
I know you have been busy, but that's your middle name, Ron Busy Moten, because you're always fighting for the cause, and we can't always get to where you are, but we know that wherever you are, the right people are there. I don't know if you have, before I go into our conversation, any sort of immediate reaction or response to what we just heard from Assistant Chief Kane, either as it relates to the violence interrupters. I know that was a passion of yours, has always been, but it goes back a long ways, and just ways that maybe the community needs to engage in trying to deal with some of the violence that we are experiencing in our communities.
Well, I mean, I think I'm happy that they are bringing the resources back to the program. As you know, when we had the Peaceaholics and other organizations who were all working together with collaboratives and even government agencies, even with the Metropolitan Police Department, when we had our VIP model, where we would come together and respond to crisis situations and homicides and acts of violence with the core agencies, who a great portion of that 5% that you were talking about were attached to in some kind of way, or maybe had a family member. So we were very strategic in addressing those issues in ways that sometimes you can't even talk about on a computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we were very strategic, and our goal was to keep people on the streets and to deal with the social, economic issues that cause problems, but also the mentalities of the people that we deal with. Because when you talk about arguments and all the little things that cause a lot of violence that we see, you can take all the guns away and we don't deal with the mentality of the people, then they'll be trying to run somebody over with a car or stab somebody or whatever. So
and we've seen all that happen, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. I always tell people we have to deal with the mentality of the people that we're dealing with. And we also have to, as a community, deal with accountability, which I believe come with teaching people citizenship. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we did with our young people is taught them citizenship. So you would see these young people now come back and be ANC members in their communities and things like that, because we taught them that, listen, the police work for you. Why are you afraid of the police? They work for you, right? That you shouldn't be afraid of them in your community. So it's all right to have a relationship with the police as long as it's the right relationship with them, right? Mm-hmm. So those are things that you teach people because they don't necessarily know them in the communities or households that they're brought up in. So those were some of the things that we kind of did differently that still don't happen today. And I was willing as a man to talk about issues that some people still won't talk about. You know, like I tell people, it's a difference between citizenship and snitching. Mm-hmm. You know, if you commit a crime on the street and then you tell on somebody to get off, that's snitching. But if you are a law-abiding citizen and you're in your community and you try to help the people that are causing all the harm in your community and they don't want to take the help, then what is next for you to do other than, you know what I'm saying? So there's a difference. And we're not teaching people that, listen, if you don't want the police in your community, then do what Jay Prince did in H-Town in Houston, where a guy killed a little girl and he was like, ain't no gang bigger than H-Town. Mm-hmm. We don't go around killing our babies.
Right.
And he posted the guy a picture on social media and everything. To me, that's gangster. So if you're going to be a gangster and you don't want the police to deal with your community, then you have to do it. So these type of conversations that we have to have, you know, in our community. That's what I believe. The other thing is, you know, the role that the police play and the interrupters play are totally different.
Yeah.
But what wins all the time is love, mm-hmm. right? And real partnerships. Like I'll give you a prime example.
And remember, we're kind of short on time, and I want to get into, because let me just say this, and I want you to, if you still want to give the example, that's fine. But, you know, to me, that's kind of the segue of your mission, where now you're into Don't Mute DC, which is, you know, love of DC, right? It's love of our history, our culture, our music, our art, our Black-owned businesses. Right. You know, that's how and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but to me, that's kind of encompasses that love that you're about to talk about. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's about equity.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I did here? I took gang members, and 2 of the gang members are actually owners of almost $2 million worth of property. So a lot of times people come into our community and they do pictures with our children, they do this with our children. Then these big conglomerates of nonprofits get all this money, the same money that they complain about the rich people getting in the for-profits, right? And they come and buy up all the land over here, like they brought up all the land on U Street and 14th Street, then later sold it, then come over here, right? But when it comes to for-profit, that's a problem. But with nonprofit, it's not a problem, right? Mm-hmm. But anyway, my thing is, how do we get people into ownership? How do we take all these young people with all these ideas? sometimes using them the wrong way, and teach them how to take those same ideas and be a part of brick and mortar. Like with Check It, we started over here with a guy by the name of Darren who had a real estate company that gave us an office space for free for 5 or 6 months, and then we were able to start paying on rent. Then it went from us paying on rent when he moved out, raising $70,000 from our community to fix the building up. Then from that later on to owning the building. So it's a process.
And talk about, you said over here, because I know where over here is, but
so we're east of the river, and historic Anacostia, all the way up to where you at in Congress Heights, right? And there's so many communities over here who are undeveloped, and it's a prime time to engage the people, make sure the people have a part of getting a chance to get a piece of the pie, right? And what happened?
When you talk about equity too, you're on Martin Luther King Avenue, who fought for equity, right?
Yeah, and I think this is the time and the place where we can really make a Martin Luther King Avenue what the dream is.
Right.
Like you have all the great stuff we just did, the groundbreaking of Parcel 15, which the community has a lot of say so in that for a change, right? And the community is going to be a part of that. But how do we make sure with all the other things with over $8 billion coming to this area, make sure that the people who are here when nobody wanted to be here are a part of it and have opportunities. When you do that, and then you have policies like Trey, you remember Trey from Check It, who I said, listen, see, I believe in setting the bar high. I don't believe in making excuses for our children and for every little thing, because that's what we fault them at. I mean, that's what we fail them at too. Trey's mother died. Trey had a voucher. I said, listen, there's a program out here where you take that voucher, HUD will match you dollar for dollar on your rent, and you got the HPAP program. 2.5 years later, Trey went and bought a house, walking in the door with $100,000, $20,000 from HUD, $100,000, $80,000 from HPAP. And if we're not teaching our young people and empowering them to do things like that, what are we really doing? Right. So we got to teach, give opportunities, and then accountability. You can't do accountability without opportunity. So it's like you got to have both. And I know some people, I did everything in the world to try to help them, and they'll come back and call me the worst person in the world. But what people have to understand, this is not the world of the piece of harlots. When we had the piece of harlots, and even when your father was around and your mother was around, it was a little different. You could take a lot of money out your pocket and put it on other people's tables and help other people's children every day, right? But right now, nobody in their right mind is going to help somebody who doesn't want to be helped with their money, because guess what? We're all 1 minute away from being homeless ourselves. We one bad thing away from the same situation. So what we got to teach people, like, it's a lot of help here in DC, unlike anywhere in the country. Could be better. And the problem is we can't slow down a bulldozer that's going 100 miles an hour. So all the money that's being thrown in the pit, sometimes it seems like it's nothing. But it's a lot of money being thrown in the pit.
So in closing, I mean, what is it that that Ron Moulton, Don't Mute DC, what is your ultimate? And I don't want to say ultimate, because I've watched you transform. You know, like every decade, there's the same Ron Moulton with a new twist to it, but it's all, you know, still sort of rooted in the same thing about, like you said, equity and helping young people. But what is it that, you know, if you left the show right now and you said, this is one thing I want people to understand, I think you've told us already, but, you know, what would that be?
I think the most important thing for us right now is policy.
Yeah.
Policy and action. And when I tell young people who protest and do things, I let them know, listen, don't be protesting for nothing. Have a strategy and a plan to get what you want. And a lot of times people use our young people and older people's energy to get what they want, but we don't have a plan. Like when we protested at United Medical Center about the 25 million, we knew what we wanted. When we protested about Banneker High School or the halfway house, we knew what we wanted. So my thing is, like, we want victories. We don't want to just be yelling and screaming. We want victories. So we got to teach people how to have a plan of action, activate the people, and then move on what you want and make sure it happens. Because we had the power. We even still the majority of the city. But they will have you think you're not. That's why Don't Mute DC was so important. It showed that we still had a voice and that all people can come together, not just Black people, for an issue that we all agree on that's wrong. So we got to find a commonality on a lot of these issues. And my thing is, I'll close on this. I don't want nobody to tell me that you're my friend by spoon feeding me and my people. You're my friend when you give us equity and empower us to live in the same conditions that you're living in.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people pass laws that pacify us, but they're not really helping us. We really need equity. We need empowerment. And there are a lot of things that happen, like the food access grants and other things with Robert White and Kenya McDuffie and Dempeg did for us. It needs to happen for other people throughout the city, all over. I mean, they've done it for other people. You just don't hear about it, and they don't look like us.
Right.
So we need to make sure, just like Marvin Gaye Park went to somebody who don't look like us for $1,
mm-hmm.
we got to do more of that.
Right.
But do it for everybody.
Right.
That's all.
Well, I want to thank you for taking some time, just to catch up and to really communicate those strong messages that hopefully will carry us through the rest of the year. Actually, we're going to have following you, Dr. Evelyn Bethune, is the granddaughter of Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune.
Exactly.
Given an early introduction, but that's what she taught. This was
in Ward 7, right?
Yeah. Just did a statute for her on Capitol Hill. So, we're going to talk to her granddaughter. I mean, this is a message. We need messengers like she was and like yourself. So I want to thank you so very much for being with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, Ron, talk to you. So we're going to jump now to Dr. Bethune. I want to make sure that everybody gets their equal time, because especially this woman, we think about Dr. Bethune, but we don't remember that she had children and now grandchildren and some that are following in their footsteps. I'm so honored to have with you Dr. Evelyn Bethune. Thanks for joining WIN TV.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. And just for the record, she had one child, and that was our father, Albert Bethune Sr. He had 5 children. So Dr. Bethune had 5 grandchildren. 3 of us are still living, and we have been in DC with grands, great-grands, great-great-grands, nieces, cousins, and just feeling very humbled and very honored for the honor that has been bestowed upon our relative.
So, so Congress, I mean, a statute was put into statutory hall this week at the U.S. Capitol.
Yes.
He replaces a Confederate general who fought to keep her and her family enslaved, and so many others. What does this honor mean to you, Dr. Bethune?
Well, for our entire family, and not just for our family, but for America. We're at a very pivotal point in the history of this country where we're going to decide whether to move forward or have to fight with those who want to roll us back into the Jim Crow or, Revolutionary War era. We have a mindset of, going backwards instead of forward. And my grandmother's statue represents forward progress. She will be the first African-American to represent a state in Statuary Hall. And I think it is more than appropriate because of her accomplishments. She earned that spot. It wasn't just, an afterthought or a give me. It is something that she earned. The work that she did affected the entire nation, not just African Americans. She made the country better. She understood the power of building relationships and also the power of us understanding who we are and owning things. I was listening to Mr. Moten, who was on previously before me, and the power of ownership. We have to know, we have to own our property and stop, talking about gentrification. We have the resources to buy that same property. And so if we don't want other folks taking over our communities, we need to buy our own stuff and take care of it and understand the value of it. My grandmother used to say, God ain't making no more dirt. It's going to always have value and it's going to grow in value. But
Speaking of your grandmother,
who we are.
Speaking of your grandmother, Dr. Bethune, first of all, you said representing a state. So we're talking about the state of Florida?
State of Florida, absolutely.
Exactly.
The legislation was passed in Florida. It's taken 5 years to bring this to the installation of the statue in Statuary Hall. And the state had to approve it first because she represents the state of Florida.
And it's interesting because, you know, when we hear the news coming out of places like Florida and Texas and some of the other states, it's hard to imagine that it would have, I won't say sailed through, because I don't think it did. I think
it
was
did
probably
not.
Yeah.
It was a lot of hard work. Yes. And the state didn't pay for the statue. Money was raised by the Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune Statuary Fund Committee. The Bethune-Cookman Alumni Association, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune National Alumni Association was the largest donor. They raised over $100,000 for the installation and for the sculpting. It is an incredible statue. The marble is out of Michelangelo's quarry. It is the last large piece of marble that will come out of that quarry in Italy, where it was sculpted. And it is amazing. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of work.
Do you have any sort of memories of your grandmother? I mean, we look at her statue over at Lincoln Park here in DC. We know a lot about the National Council of Negro Women and, the women that came out of that organization, who I think know Dr. Bethune, but so many of us know of her, but we don't know her. Can you maybe tell us what it was like to?
Well, I can tell you about what it was like for her to be my grandmother. I was 3 years old when my grandmother passed. And I grew up in the house with her son, my daddy. So I know the stories of my grandmother's life. I've interacted with our family, our relatives in Maysville, our cousins. The stories are deep and wide. But my grandmother's history is not a secret. I mean, there are documentaries. If we want to know about our folks, all we have to do is do a little research. We tend to know more about other people's history than we do our own. And it's not secret. It's there. She has a council house over on, Vernon Street, Vernon Avenue, right off of DuPont Circle, that is filled with Black women's history. So we're present, we're visible, and we have to be about knowing who we are and not allowing other people to tell our story.
And I think it's important also because there are very few statutes or places around the country that honor Black women.
Absolutely.
This is very unique. And so, I mean, you don't get there by just, and no offense for bakers, not trying to offend anybody, but by baking pies and, whatever.
Well, now don't say that, because that's how my grandmother raised money. She had a sweet potato pie recipe that, absolutely. When she first started her school, she had $1.50. She built Bethune-Cookman on what was the garbage dump in Daytona Beach, because that was the only land they would sell her. We have to be mindful of the time period. Women in this country, Black or white, did not have the vote, nor could they make major purchases or transactions without the permission of a man. And so for her to be able to acquire any kind of property was a major accomplishment. And for a Black woman, it was totally unheard of.
How has your grandmother's life inspired you? I see you have a doctor in front of your name now, just like she did. How did her life inspire you and your choices?
Well, it's not about the degree. It's about your consciousness. And so, there are a lot of people that are extremely conscious that have no degree and no letters behind or in front of their names. The degree is basically to give you legitimacy in a world that requires documentation. But many of our scholars don't have that. And so we have to learn to be able to get the message, because God said he can make a rock cry out if necessary. And so we have to understand, my degree is in political science. I believe that everything that is major financial is political, and we have to understand the process if we intend to be in control of our own decision making, because we have to know what the rules are in order to play the game, because it is a game, and we see it played on Capitol Hill on a daily basis. It's like moving chess pieces. whatever works best for who's in charge. And so we have to learn how to be in charge of our stuff. My grandmother was a very skillful strategist, an incredible businesswoman, an educator, an activist, an organizer. She understood the power of being able to bring women together, because women are, once we decide that we're going to do something, we get it done. And so that's what the National Council of Negro Women was about. It was about bringing the leaders of organizations together so they could go back to their communities and teach and organize. It was a strategy, and it was massive. We have to get back to that.
So you've written a book yourself about your grandmother,
Yes.
Bethune, Out of the Darkness into the Light of Freedom. Can you just tell us a little bit about that, and then how folks can get the book? Because before we go, we want to make sure that folks know how to get that.
Absolutely. Well, we are on Facebook, Dr. Evelyn Bethune. We also have Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune Family Legacy Foundation. The books help support the work that we do in terms of mentoring and helping students stay on the right track and stay focused. Because lack of money can be a distraction when you can't pay for your books. And a lot of times financial aid doesn't cover that. So we try to fill in those spaces. The book is about growing up as the grandchildren of Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, living in the house with her only son, her only child, and growing up on the campus of Bethune-Cookman in a very segregated Daytona Beach, southern city, which Daytona was very segregated. And the quality of life that African Americans enjoyed was because of my grandmother, because she was in Daytona and she brought issues to the forefront. She addressed them with the leadership, and she did not just let things happen. When they wouldn't let us go to the beach in Daytona, she bought beachfront property in New Smyrna Beach so that African Americans could enjoy the ocean, the beach, without being accosted or arrested. And so they could have beach houses, they could own property on the ocean. And so those are the kinds of things that she was about. She helped start Central Life Insurance, which was headquartered in Tampa, so that we owned our stuff.
Yeah.
And I keep saying that because I really want us to get the importance of that.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us. I want to say congratulations to you and your family, but to all of America for now having Dr. Bethune's statue now in Statutory Hall at the U.S. Capitol. And of course, like I said, there's so many landmarks around, at least in Washington, D.C., and probably other places that honor her. But this is the newest and probably the most politically significant. So,
yes, and our hope is that as the congressional people walk through there, that she will be looking down on them saying, okay, get it right this time, because there is so much work to be done. But once again, the book is Bethune, Out of Darkness into the Light of Freedom. Our website is historyinthemakingcoachingnetwork.com, because we believe that greatness is on our DNA, and we have to make sure our kids know that.
Well, we will certainly make sure that we share that with our readers. And again, thank you so much for being with us today, and God bless.
God bless you as well. Thank you.
All righty. Oh, that is just fantastic. I feel honored just to have been in the presence of Dr. Bethune's granddaughter. You know, the spirit lives on, the work continues, and the legacy continues. And we can see that even though she was 3 years old when her grandmother passed, but she, you know, it's in the DNA, right? And so I think that's a wonderful thing to see how well she's done and what we all can do. So yeah, we might want to we're going to get someone on from the National Council, hopefully Janice Smith, over from National Council of Negro Women on the show. I certainly would love for them to bring back that Black family reunion, but that's a whole nother conversation. And the Bethune, the library, the building over on Vermont Avenue is another resource that we may check into as well and share with you all. But right now, I am also excited to bring on Tony Lewis, the founder and executive director and chief bottle washer and mentor and you name it, with FAME, the Foundation for Music, for the Advancement of Music and Education, as well as her team. So, Tony, welcome to WIN TV.
Hi, Renee. Thank you so much, Denise, for having us. It's always good to be around and in your presence. Thank you so much.
Oh, likewise, likewise. We got a big event tomorrow, so I want to start with that, and then we'll go backwards, okay?
Okay.
So tell us about the event that you're doing tomorrow, which I've attended in the past. Can't be there tomorrow, unfortunately, but tell us what's going on.
Well, every year what we do is celebrate a lot of the community leaders and volunteers and nonprofits who are working hard and dedicated with us to help us continue what we're doing here at FAME. We're going to be recognizing about 8 of those community leaders and also 2 teachers. Teachers are very important to me. I want to make sure that they have that they're recognized, and that we also give them a stipend. As you know, teachers, they spend a lot of their own personal money that they don't have to, but they do. So we're giving them a stipend. So we're really excited about recognizing these people. And of course, we're always happy to present our FAME Jazz Band, which is composed of about 31 young musicians who are with us year-round, and they will be performing on the inside. We're having a banquet on the inside. Then outside, we're going to go out to the garden, and we're going to have a concert where the FAME Jazz Ensemble will perform. That group is a group where we have some of our professional musicians that are currently in the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and they will be performing as well. It starts at 5 o'clock with the VIP reception. At 6 o'clock, we have the general reception. And this is going to be at the Samuel Riggs Alumni Center at the University of Maryland, one of our major partners. The University of Maryland has been a fantastic, fantastic partner over the years, and we're excited about it.
Wonderful. I really meant to give Chevry a snippet of one of the performances of the jazz band over at Blues Alley. I've got a little snippet from that, which would have been great. You're talking about real professional, when you say professional 9th and 10th graders, but professional musicians. And you definitely got them as a member of FAME. Before we move on, though, I want you to tell us why you started FAME.
Well, I have a degree in education. And while I was going through that process, I did a little research on the impact of music on youth and how it impacts them in all facets of their life. And I'm not a musician. They won't let me sing. So I enjoy hearing the musicians play. But basically what I wanted to do initially when I started it was just to give scholarships to youth. But as I continued to have conversations with principals and teachers and students, I realized scholarship dollars without some of that basic needed education was wasted. So what we decided to do was to step back for a minute, get with some of these people and decide, what do we really want to do? I want to make sure that these musicians, let me tell you, the young musicians in this area are some of the most talented, brilliant musicians that I would put up against anywhere in this country. So what we wanted to do was to make sure that they had all that they needed in terms of academics, the music, college, and that they're prepared for college and career. And that's what we do. That's what we do there. So we have the FAME Jazz Band program. That's one of our programs, which is a year-round, 31 students, as I mentioned. And we keep them, we meet weekly. And we have a couple partners, the University of Maryland, Prince George's County Public School System, and several others that support us. We also have the Music is Central, where we actually go into the schools, meet with the teachers, come up with a strategy for how we can support them during the year. Sometimes it's providing instruments. It may be providing musicians. We bring musicians in and help them with their classes, because a lot of times the classes are full. They're large classes, and some of the students can't get the attention they need. So we're excited about going into the room to do that with them. And we have our summer music program, which we're into the throes of right now at the University of Maryland with students from all over the country. They come in to learn music technology, which is music production, which is something that isn't offered at very many places for middle and high school students. And we're there now working, and this is our first week. We have 3 more weeks to go, and we're excited about it.
So tell us who we have with us today. I see names, but tell us who we have with us today.
Yes, I mentioned that we're going to be recognizing a couple, 8 awardees, and we have Miss Rosemary Hughes, who's from UPS. That has been a major sponsor, and she'll tell you what she's been doing for us. And Morris Wilson, who's a musician out of Baltimore, and he's also been a FAME volunteer for a long time. And we have our new board member, who is actually now our board chair, Ms. Ingrid Valentine.
Wonderful. I'm going to go back to, this is off subject, but I'm going to go back to what Dr. Bethune said, and that is when you own it, you can control it. And so our show normally ends at 1, but because we own it, we can go over.
Sounds good to me.
I want to take time with this and get everybody in. So I'm going to start with you, Ms. Hughes, because, sponsorship is really critical for the work that nonprofits need to do. They have a mission, they have calling, there's a need, but resources are important. So tell me, why is UPS supporting FAME? Or Tony Lewis? Maybe it's,
Well, it starts with Tony. It does. She's amazing. And, just to your point, Tony Lewis has been a wonderful partner with UPS. We're so proud to have met her. Excuse me, the great service she does by providing these kids, as she was saying, not only a music education, but college preparedness, career readiness. Through our partnership, we're able to help children achieve their dreams. And that in and of itself is just amazing.
That's interesting. I'd love to hear the jazz band do a commercial for UPS. Just a
that'd be awesome. Denise, I'd like to make a mention about UPS. They have been extremely supportive with our music labs. They have outfitted our labs twice.
Wow. Okay.
And once we were able to take that equipment and put it into the children's homes during COVID in order to keep us on track and keep the kids at grade level. So I want to say that was a major support to FAME. And we're very proud and happy to have that partnership.
Yes, I think it's important for, when outside organizations or corporations jump in to help, that we acknowledge them for their support, because without which we may not be able to do as much as we would like to do. So I'm going to say thank you. And I'm just a consumer of the organization, a supporter as well, but I'm glad that you all are there, Ms. Hughes. And I'm going to jump now to Mr. Wilson. So tell us how you have engaged with FAME.
Well, I am a volunteer with FAME, and I have been a supporter of FAME since its inception. And my volunteer work, I guess, kind of began as a performer at some of FAME's sponsored events. And the first one being in 2005 at Prince George's Community College. There was a FAME concert, and I performed there. And I performed at a couple of other events that FAME has had over the years. And then as time has gone on, I have worked with Tony as kind of an ad hoc consultant, brainstorming some different ideas, strategic ideas about, what FAME could be and do as it moves into the future. And then in the last couple of years, I co-produced the 2 recording projects that the FAME Jazz Band has completed, and oversaw all of the administrative tasks necessary to get those products commercialized in the market.
That's great. I mean, I think it's important, that the students have what you said, Tony, now the understanding and access to technology. I know when you started, I hope I'm not saying anything offensive, Mr. Wilson, but with music back in the day, computers were not a part of the presentation, right?
Right, absolutely.
More and more and more a part of what we do. But one thing I like about FAME is that you have people who really know how to play instruments. I mean, technology enhances it, but the instrument, being able to work with, and I'm not going to start naming them because you're going to see how ignorant I am, but being able to work with those instruments I mean, how has that helped you to grow in what you do?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, computers?
Yeah, I mean, the technology that.
Technology is well, you're absolutely right. When I started in the music industry, and especially in recording, it was so different than it is now. We recorded on tape, and you had to get it right or you had to redo it. Now they've got all of this technology, all of this digital wizardry that you can fix things. You can punch things in. You don't have to do it right the whole time all the way through. And so it makes it so much easier to do a recording now, because you can focus on different pieces that you want to fix as opposed to having to do the whole thing all over.
Wow, interesting. So, Miss Valentine, you are now the board chair. You're responsible for raising money. You're responsible for, making sure the organization works. I mean, why is it that you decided to take on this role?
It was an honor, actually. It was something that I've known Fame for over 10 years now. Tony and I've been watching Fame from a distance rather. And about 2 or 3 years ago, Tony asked me to come on board, and I came on board. And then this past January, I became board chair. The primary one of my purposes is just keeping up with Tony. That's a major feat in and of itself. And so, but Tony and I, like the other board members, we gel well, and we all have a passion. We can't quite get there to Tony yet, but we're getting there. But we have a passion, just like anyone else. I mean, we volunteer to pick up the pieces. Sometimes where the federal government or state government, leaves off. Like Tony was saying, that the lack of music opportunities in the schools and academia was not where it should be, and Fame just came in there and filled that gap. And it's important that we hear about a lot of negative things going on in the world today, and it's important when you volunteer to give something to those and fill in some of those pieces. There's so many things going on with kids right now in the school system. Kids are afraid to go to school. When they come to Fame, when you see their eyes and they get in those classrooms, they light up. They want to be there. This is what is so exciting and what drives our board members and hopefully the community to be involved with a project like this. This is like an old school project. I mean, really everybody's involved. The mothers, the grandmothers, the fathers, the sisters. When we have events, it's a whole generation of people that will come out to support one child. And it's like nothing else I've seen in years. And so it's easy to be a part of Fame because you want to be a part of Fame. Tomorrow night is one of our highlight events, but all the time when we have an event, just seeing these kids' faces light up when they get on that stage and they say, "Here I am," it's amazing, and you are drawn into it. So I do it because I want to do it, and I love it, and I believe in what Tony is doing with the program. So I just want to mention to anybody who isn't going to, or hopefully can come out tomorrow night, please come and share and feel what Fame offers to the community and our children.
Wonderful. Now, other than Tony's already told us she is not a musician. We know Mr. Wilson is. How about you, Ms. Hughes?
I did. I grew up in the Prince George's County school system, and I was a violin player from 3rd grade all the way up to high school. And I know the importance of education and music and what it means. It was one of the things that motivated me to, have that determination and fortitude that I'll never forget. It also helped me with math. It was one of the ways that I learned how to do fractions really fast. Because you have to do that when you're a musician.
Do you still play?
No, I don't. Not. I think I can pick it up, but no, I would need a whole lot of instruction on that part. Yeah.
How about you, Ms. Hughes?
No, unfortunately, years and years ago, I took piano lessons, but that was it. But I am an avid supporter of musicians, concert goers, from opera to jazz to blues to rock. I love it all.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that we realize how important music is in our
Yes.
lives.
Absolutely.
It really is important.
Yeah.
I mean, we never grow out of that, and it's a great place to start. And I think that's what Fame does. So, Tony, you want to tell us one more time about the event tomorrow and where
Yes.
it is and how
Yes.
people can get tickets or?
Again, it's going to be at the University of Maryland, the Samuel Riggs Alumni Center. It's right across from the School of Music, and it's at 5 p.m. is the VIP reception. 6 o'clock is the general reception, and you can get tickets at famemusic.org. That's famemusic.org, or you can give us a call, 301-805-5358. It's going to be lots of fun. I must tell you, Denise, what happens a lot of times, people think they're coming just to hear some young musicians. They think they're going to be bored. But once they come, trust me, they always come back. And that's what the opportunity that we need, is to put the children in front of them. And I can never say enough how important it is and has been for Fame to have the strong volunteers and the corporate sponsors that we have. They are personally involved and they get their teams involved. Every nonprofit needs that in order to sustain. That's what got us through the COVID. And that's what is helping to keep the music playing at Fame.
Well, I can say that the promise that you made, you do keep, and that is, it's a great performance. And so anybody that goes is going to truly enjoy it, and you'll get a chance to meet, the whole Fame team. So I wish you all a great event tomorrow, and thank you very much for being with us. And
Denise, we can't end without saying that we're recognizing Ron Burke from your team for the work that he does all the time for us. You're the advertising, you all are corporate sponsor for us too. And we need all of that. And Ron is just a jewel. And we're going to recognize him tomorrow night too.
Well, that's wonderful. Okay, well, I'm really sad I can't be there now, but Ron knows how much he's appreciated. So
you know it.
That's wonderful. That's great. So I hope folks will go out and let us know the next event that's coming up. If there's programs in the schools, whatever, you've got the website so folks can reach out. And thank you all so much for being with us today.
And thank you for what you do. Appreciate it.
All righty.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh, I'm back. Okay, this brings us to the end of another segment of WIN TV. I want to thank you all so very much for being with us. Sorry we went over a little bit, but I thought it was important that we do that. And I hope that you can get out, go see the monument. Well, I don't know I guess you can get into Statutory Hall. I'm not sure, but check out, if you can, the statue at the Capitol. I want to thank those who've been watching. And if you can go to the event tomorrow, that would be great as well. Or any of the other places. Maybe you want to go by Lincoln Park and see the statue of Dr. Bethune. But we want to thank those of you all who watched the show today. A couple of names I've got to just shout out. And that's, of course, Vera Abbott, my mom. She wants us to do some programming on seniors. So we will make sure that that happens because that's important. We may be bringing on Miss Senior DC soon, too, because she was just crowned at an event at UDC. So we're looking forward to bringing her. Kevin McNair, editor of the Washington Informer, always glad to have you on. And we'll be seeing an interview with him hopefully next week with Mark Morial. The National Urban League is meeting here in Washington, D.C. Kevin had a sit down with the president, Mark Morial. So we hope to share that with you next week, as well as thank you, Sharon Butts and Michael Van Lassiter. Von Lassiter. I wonder who he is, Chevry. Okay. But anyway, thank you all and everybody else who's watched the show. We certainly do. Andre Holmes, we certainly do appreciate it when you spend this hour or so with us. So having said that, I'm going to sign off. I will not be here again next week. I'll give you the details of where I am when I get back. Or where I'm going when I get back. But at any rate, we'll learn more about that. And until then, you all have a great week. Stay safe. Again, we can't take off those masks, so keep wearing those masks because people are coming down with COVID like crazy. So maybe we can get Dr. V back on or some of our staff are talking about, you know, this new strain of COVID. Pick up the Informer. There's a story there as well. So I'm done. Thank you. Have a great weekend, and I will see you back here soon.